power doesn't announce itself with sirens. Sometimes it arrives in a charcoal suit, hands folded, voice calm. When Chief Matron Evelyn Hardwick grabbed Amara Okoye by the hair, right there in front of God, the ER staff, and the press-ready VIP wing, she thought she was correcting a cleaner. She thought no one important was watching. She was wrong. The man standing near the glass doors didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to, because Kang Min-jae's world operated on different rules, and Hardwick had just violated every single one. St. Helena Medical Center was a battlefield of a different kind. Instead of gunfire and mortars, there were code blues, malpractice threats, and the incessant hum of fluorescent lights that never quite illuminated the corners where people like Amara worked. She moved through the chaos of the hospital corridors with a silence that made her forgettable. She was 27, though her shoulders carried decades more. She'd been cleaning floors at St. Helena for 8 months, and in that time she'd learned to make herself smaller, quieter, less. She scrubbed the biohazard bins. She mopped the ER before dawn. She took the graveyard shifts no one else wanted. To the staff, she was nobody. A cleaner from somewhere vague with an accent they couldn't place, and a posture that suggested she was apologizing just by existing. "Bennett, move that bucket!" The command came from Chief Matron Evelyn Hardwick. Hardwick ruled the nursing staff like a general without mercy. She was 52, elegant in a way she weaponized, and possessed a sense of authority that filled every corridor she walked. She came from old hospital royalty. The Hardwicks had been in healthcare administration for 3 generations, and she treated anyone below her station like disposable equipment. Amara didn't flinch at her tone. She simply lifted the mop bucket and moved it 3 feet to the left, away from the nurse's station where Hardwick was conducting her morning inspection. "Not there!" Hardwick snapped, not looking up from her clipboard. "Do you have any awareness of spatial dynamics? You're blocking the trauma bay sightline." "Apologies, ma'am," Amara said. Her voice was low, flat, trained by years of learning when to speak and when to vanish. Hardwick scoffed. "Apologies don't maintain standards. Competence does. Try to acquire some." She swept past Amara, deliberately stepping close enough that her pristine white shoe nudged the bucket, and sloshing dirty water onto Amara's already stained pants. The other staff members, clustered near the elevators, watched with a mixture of pity and relief. Relief that it wasn't them in Hardwick's crosshairs today. "She's in rare form," whispered Nurse Carla, a veteran of 15 years who'd learned to read Hardwick's moods like weather patterns. "The budget meeting must have gone badly." "Or she heard about the donor VIP coming through," muttered Dr. Shaw, the resident who'd worked 3 doubles that week. He sighed, watching Amara retreat toward the supply closet. "I don't know how Okoye takes it. She never fights back. If she talked to me like that, I'd go straight to HR." "HR won't touch Hardwick," Carla replied. "She's untouchable. Okoye's just easy prey. She's like a ghost. I tried to ask where she was from last week, and she just looked at me until I gave up." Inside the supply closet, Amara Okoye leaned her forehead against the cool metal shelving. She took a breath. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. Her hands were steady. They were always steady. They'd been steady when she held her mother's hand through 18 months of chemo at this very hospital. They'd been steady when the bills came. $147,000 in medical debt that insurance mysteriously wouldn't cover. They'd been steady when she dropped out of her nursing program to work 2 jobs just to keep the collectors at bay. She wasn't afraid of Evelyn Hardwick. Women like her were predictable. They broke when their authority was questioned. Amara had survived poverty that would have made Hardwick faint. She'd watched her mother die in a hospital bed while administrators debated payment plans. She adjusted the sleeves of her uniform, pulling them down to hide the rope burns on her wrists, remnants from her second job as a nighttime caregiver for a bedridden elderly man whose son liked to supervise her work too closely. She quit that job last week. The debt could wait another month. She wasn't here for glory. She was here to survive, to pay down what she owed, to eventually, maybe someday, finish her nursing degree and work in scrubs instead of cleaning them. But that was years away. For now, she mopped floors and let a tyrant in starched whites treat her like she was nothing. It was part of survival. Blend in. Don't engage. Endure. Okoye! Hardwick's voice cut through the hallway like a scalpel. Get out here. The VIP wing needs to be pristine in 10 minutes. Amara opened her eyes. The exhaustion settled back into her shoulders. She pushed off the shelf and walked back into the corridor. The ER was buzzing with controlled chaos. Press vans idled outside. Security doubled at every entrance. The hospital administrator, Mr. Chen, swept through with an entourage, barking orders about presentation and optics. The air smelled of disinfectant and the particular tension that came before important people arrived. Where's the VIP? Someone whispered. Donor? Another voice replied. Big one. Enough to fund the entire new wing. Anonymous, supposedly, but Chen's been sweating for days. Hardwick stood at the center of it all, a conductor orchestrating chaos into submission. Her uniform was immaculate. Her hair, iron gray and severe, hadn't moved in what Amara suspected was decades. She radiated control. Positions. Everyone, Hardwick announced. This hospital's reputation depends on the next hour. I will not tolerate a single error. Her eyes swept the corridor and landed on Amara, who was scrubbing near the nurse's station. The cable snagged Amara's mop. Just a second. Barely a sound, but Hardwick noticed. What do you think you're doing? The matron snapped, striding over. Amara froze. I'm sorry, Ma. You people are always in the way, Hardwick said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. Always slowing things down. Amara bent quickly to untangle the cable. Her hands trembled. I'll finish right away. That should have been the end. Instead, Hardwick reached out, sharp, sudden, and yanked Amara's hair backward, forcing her upright. The gasp that rippled through the station was instant. Look at me when I'm correcting you, Hardwick hissed, her face inches from Amara's. This is a hospital, not a street market. Time stopped. Doctors stared at their charts. Nurses went rigid. No one moved. Amara's eyes burned, not just with pain, but with humiliation. Her grip tightened on the mop handle. She didn't scream. She didn't fight back. She just whispered, "Please don't touch me." Hardwick scoffed, her fingers still twisted in Amara's hair. Don't tell me what to do. Know your place. That was when a calm, unfamiliar voice cut through the tension. Release her. Hello, my friends. Thanks for joining me on this fascinating story. Before we continue, please kindly help subscribe to the channel. Like the video and comment where you are watching from and what time it's at your end. Now let's continue with our story. Everyone turned. And in that moment, as Amara's scalp burned and her vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall, she had no idea that the man standing near the VIP wing glass doors was about to change everything. But to understand why Kang Min-jae walked toward Evelyn Hardwick with the inevitability of a closing vice, You need to understand what he saw when he looked at Amara. You need to understand the system he'd been dismantling, one bully at a time, for the past 3 years. The man stood near the glass doors like he'd been carved from stone. Tall, perhaps 6'1", with the kind of posture that suggested military training or generational wealth, possibly both. His charcoal suit was tailored to the millimeter, the fabric so precise it seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. No badge, no hospital lanyard. No visitor's pass clipped to his lapel. His hands were folded behind his back. His expression was unreadable, calm, almost bored, as if watching a matron assault a cleaner was merely Tuesday afternoon theater. But something about him bent the room inward. The air pressure changed. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the overhead fluorescents seemed to dim in deference. Hardwick's fingers loosened slightly in Amara's hair, though she didn't release her completely. Her eyes narrowed at the intrusion. "This is a restricted area," Hardwick said, her voice still sharp but now edged with uncertainty. "Who are you?" The man didn't answer her. His eyes, dark, impossibly still, stayed on Amara. "Are you hurt?" he asked. His voice was gentle, accented, each word chosen with surgical precision. Amara swallowed hard. Her throat felt raw. I'm fine." Hardwick finally released Amara's hair, stepping back with visible annoyance. "Sir, this doesn't concern you. This is an internal staffing matter." The man tilted his head slightly, as if considering a fascinating insect. "I disagree." The whispers started immediately. One of the younger doctors, Dr. Shaw, leaned toward Nurse Carla, his voice barely audible. "Is that—" "Can't be," Carla breathed, but her face had drained of color. Another nurse, stationed near the pharmacy window, gripped her colleague's arm. "That's Chairman Kang's representative." The name rippled through the corridor like an electric current. Kang Min-jae. Everyone in the city knew the name, or at least the rumors that clung to it like smoke. A Korean businessman whose investments had saved failing hospitals, resurrected shipping companies, and rebuilt entire neighborhoods that banks had written off. No photographs in the press, no interviews, no social media footprint, just results, and a reputation that made board members sweat through their tailored shirts. Some called him a philanthropist. Others whispered darker words. Jopok, Gayandal, terms that suggested his wealth came from soil the IRS would rather not excavate. But no one said those words loudly, and no one was foolish enough to cross him. The man stepped closer to Hardwick. His movements were unhurried, deliberate, each step measured. He didn't rush. He didn't need to. Hardwick straightened her uniform, trying to reassemble her authority like armor. "I don't know who you think you are, but this is highly inappropriate. Security." "Security already knows who I am," the man said calmly, glancing briefly toward the entrance where 2 guards had suddenly become very interested in their clipboards. "They won't interrupt." Hardwick's jaw tightened. "This woman is an employee. I was correcting negligent behavior. It's my responsibility to maintain standards. By putting your hands on her?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Hardwick faltered. "She was obstructing operations during a critical—" "You put your hands on an employee," he repeated, his voice still gentle, still terrifyingly calm. "Explain why that was necessary." Silence. Hardwick looked around for support, from the doctors, the nurses, the administrator who'd been barking orders 10 minutes ago. Mr. Chen had vanished. Dr. Shaw was suddenly very focused on his phone. No one met her eyes. "She's a cleaner," Hardwick said finally, the word sharp with disdain. "She doesn't understand hospital protocols. Sometimes correction requires physical assault." Hardwick's face flushed. "That's not what—" The man smiled faintly. It didn't reach his eyes. "In my world," he said, "we don't touch people we don't own. And we don't own people." The silence grew heavier. Amara stood frozen, still clutching the mop handle, trying to process what was happening. Men like this, men in suits that cost more than her annual salary, didn't stop for women like her. They stepped over the cleaners. They looked through them. But he was looking at her. Not through. Not past. At. Hardwick scoffed, trying to regain footing. "This is absurd. I don't know what you think you saw, but I assure you this is standard disciplinary procedure. If you have concerns, you can file a formal complaint through the appropriate channels." "You will apologize." Hardwick blinked. "Excuse me?" "You will apologize," he repeated, turning his full attention back to the matron. "In front of everyone you embarrassed her in front of?" A laugh escaped Hardwick, short, incredulous. "You don't have authority here. This is my hospital. I've worked here for 23 years. You can't just walk in and—" "By tomorrow morning," the man said evenly. "This hospital's expansion loan will be frozen. By noon, 3 malpractice settlements will reopen for review. By evening, the board will be answering questions they buried years ago." Murmurs erupted throughout the corridor. Hardwick's breath caught. Her face shifted from indignation to something harder to read. Fear, maybe, or the first cracks of realization. You wouldn't—" He leaned in, just slightly, just enough for her to hear. "I already have." Hardwick looked around desperately. Her allies, the doctors who'd laughed at her jokes, the senior nurses who'd enforced her rules, suddenly found urgent reasons to be elsewhere. Clipboards needed checking. Patients needed rounds. The coffee in the break room required immediate attention. None of them met her eyes. Her voice, when it came, was smaller, stripped of its earlier venom. "I apologize," she said stiffly, turning halfway toward Amara. "For touching you. It was inappropriate." Amara nodded, still shaking. "Thank you." But the man wasn't finished. "You're relieved of duty," he added quietly. "Effective immediately." Hardwick's eyes widened in genuine shock. "You can't, that's not, I have tenure, union protections. You can't just, the board will confirm it," he said. "In writing, by the end of business today." He stepped back, adjusting his cufflinks with the same precision he'd used for every other movement. Then he turned to Amara. "Come with me." Amara's grip tightened on the mop. I still have work. My shift doesn't end until—" "You have choices now," he replied, his eyes meeting hers with something that looked almost like recognition. "That's different." Amara's hands wouldn't stop shaking. Even 40 minutes later, sitting in a small administrative office on the 3rd floor, her fingers trembled against the disposable cup of water someone had given her. The office belonged to no one in particular. Just another sterile room with beige walls and motivational posters about teamwork that no one believed. Kang Min-jae had escorted her here, then disappeared with a brief, "Wait here," that somehow didn't sound like a command. Just a statement of fact. So she waited. And while she waited, the memories came flooding back. Her mother's hands had been smaller near the end. The chemo had stolen everything: hair, appetite, the fullness in her cheeks. But Amara remembered most how her mother's hands had seemed to shrink, like the illness was eating her from the fingertips inward. "Don't cry. NWAM," her mother had whispered from the hospital bed. This very hospital. 4th floor, oncology wing. "This is not your burden." But it was. It had always been. The bills had started arriving 3 weeks after the funeral. Neat white envelopes with red stamps and polite language that meant "pay us or we'll destroy you." $147,000 in medical debt. Insurance had covered some, the treatments they deemed necessary. But experimental therapies, the ones that might have actually worked, those were elective. Amara had been 25, 3 semesters away from her nursing degree. She'd dropped out the day the first collection notice arrived. 2 jobs, 16-hour days, sleep in 4-hour intervals. The math was simple. At minimum wage, it would take her 11 years to pay it off. More, if she wanted to eat. So she cleaned the floors, emptied bedpans, took night shifts caring for people whose families paid her cash under the table because hiring proper help was too expensive. She learned to make herself invisible. It was safer that way. A soft knock on the door pulled her back to the present. Nurse Carla entered, carrying 2 sandwiches wrapped in cafeteria cellophane. She set one in front of Amara without making eye contact. "You need to eat something," Carla said quietly. "I'm not hungry." "Eat anyway." Carla sat down across from her, unwrapping her own sandwich with deliberate slowness. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Carla said, "She broke my finger once." Amara looked up. "What?" "Hardwick." Carla flexed her left hand, showing a pinky that bent slightly wrong at the second knuckle. 4 years ago, I was a new grad, fresh out of school. I gave a patient the wrong dosage. My fault, completely. But instead of reporting it properly, she grabbed my hand and bent my finger back until I heard it snap. Amara stared. "She told me it was a reminder," Carla continued, her voice flat. "Said pain was a better teacher than paperwork. I never reported it. I needed the job. I had student loans." "Carla, you're not the first." Carla finally met her eyes. "You're just the first one someone powerful saw." By lunch, the whispers had spread through the entire hospital. In the break room, Dr. Shaw sat with 3 other residents, their voices low. "I heard she actually got fired. Suspended pending investigation. Either way, she's done. You don't embarrass the Kang family and walk away clean." "Is he actually with the Kangs, or just a representative?" "Does it matter?" "He walked in here like he owned the building. For all we know, he does." One of the residents, a woman named Dr. Patel, stirred her coffee slowly. "Hardwick had it coming," she said quietly. "Last month, she told me I was too ethnic to do outreach work in the donor wing. Said my accent would make wealthy patients uncomfortable." The table went silent. "I didn't report it," Patel continued. "Because what's the point? HR protects people like her. They always have." On the 6th floor, in the executive conference room, a different conversation was happening. Hospital Administrator Chen sat at the head of the table, flanked by the hospital's legal counsel and PR director. His tie was loosened. Sweat stained his collar. "How bad is this?" he asked. The PR director, a sharp woman named Ms. Whitmore, didn't sugarcoat it. "Publicly? We can spin it. Matron had a stressful day, made an error in judgment. We've addressed it internally. Standard corporate response. And privately? Privately, if Kang Min-jae wants us destroyed, we're destroyed." Whitmore pulled up a file on her tablet. His donations fund 40% of our operating budget. The new wing, his money. The cardiac center, his money. He owns us in everything but name. Chen rubbed his temples. So what do? We give him whatever he wants, the legal counsel said bluntly. Hardwick is already gone. We need to do damage control with the staff. Anonymous surveys. Exit interviews. Find out who else she's brutalized and settle quietly before they lawyer up. Christ, Chen muttered. How did this happen under our watch? Because you don't watch the bottom, Whitmore said coldly. No one does. Cleaners, orderlies, support staff, they're invisible until someone like Kang decides they're not. Back in the third-floor office, Amara finally unwrapped the sandwich. She took one bite. Her stomach twisted with nausea, but she forced herself to chew. Carla watched her with something like pity. What are you going to do? I don't know, Amara admitted. Go back to work, I guess. Finish my shift. You think they'll let you? They have to. I need the hours. She stopped herself, but Carla understood. The debt. Amara nodded. How much? More than I'll make in a decade. Carla was quiet for a moment. Then she said, My advice? Whatever that man offers you, take it. Men like Kang Min-jae don't notice people like us unless they have a reason. And when they do notice, they don't forget. I don't want his charity. It's not charity, Carla said firmly. It's leverage. He just spent his credibility defending you. That means something. Trust me, in this world, you take the wins where you can get them. The door opened again. Kang Min-jae entered, holding a folder. His expression was unchanged, calm, unreadable, precise. Ms. Okoye? He said. We need to talk about your future. Amara set down the sandwich. Her hands were still shaking, but she met his eyes. And for the first time in 8 months, she didn't look away first. Kang Min-jae didn't sit like other men. He occupied the chair across from Amara with the economy of someone who'd learned long ago that space was a resource, not a right. His posture was perfect, spine straight, hands resting on the armrests with fingers loosely curled, not relaxed, controlled. The folder lay closed on the desk between them. For a long moment, he simply observed her, not unkindly, not with pity, just observed. Amara forced herself to hold his gaze. Her mother had taught her that. When someone important looks at you, NWM, you look back. Let them see you are human. You didn't fight back, Kang said finally. His voice was quiet, almost contemplative. Why? The question landed like a stone in still water. Amara swallowed. Because if I lose this job, I lose everything. Everything? The debt doesn't stop, she said quietly. The collectors don't care if I'm employed or not. If I'm not paying, I'm defaulting. If I default, they sue. If they sue, they garnish whatever I earn next. It's a system designed so you can't escape. Kang nodded slowly. And yet you asked her not to touch you. Amara's throat tightened. I had to say something. No, Kang corrected gently. You chose to. There's a difference. He leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on his knees. The movement made him seem less like a businessman and more like something else. A teacher, maybe, or a chess player explaining a gambit. Do you know what I do, Ms. Okoye? You're a donor, Amara said carefully. You fund hospitals. That's what I'm called. A faint smile. But that's not what I do. He stood, walking to the window that overlooked the city. 6 stories below, traffic moved in predictable patterns. Red light, green light. Stop, go. I invest in systems, Kang said, hands clasped behind his back. Hospitals, shipping companies, construction firms, businesses that serve the public, but are run by people who've forgotten what service means. He turned to face her. And I watch what those systems do when pressure is applied, when budgets tighten, when inspectors arrive, when emergencies happen. His eyes held hers. Because that's when you see who people really are, not in comfort, in crisis. Amara said nothing. Chief Matron Hardwick ran this hospital's nursing staff for 23 years, Kang continued. In that time, she broke a nurse's finger. She forced a janitor to work through a concussion. She told a Muslim doctor her hijab was unprofessional. She made a diabetic orderly skip lunch as punishment for being 2 minutes late. Amara's breath caught. How do you... I know because I pay attention, Kang said simply. I found this hospital, which means I fund the people who work here. And I don't fund rot. He returned to his seat, retrieving the folder. Hardwick failed, he said. Not because she was cruel. Cruelty is common. She failed because she revealed that the system protecting her was designed to protect cruelty itself. HR ignored complaints. The administration looked the other way. The board renewed her contract. So you removed her? I applied pressure, Kang corrected. The board removed her. They always do, when the alternative is losing everything. He opened the folder. Inside were papers, official-looking documents with letterheads Amara didn't recognize. Scholarship programs, hospital administration courses, placement guarantees. This is for you, Kang said, sliding the folder across the desk. Amara stared at it like it might explode. I don't understand. A full scholarship to complete your nursing degree, Kang explained. With an option to continue into hospital administration. Housing stipend included. Your debt payments are suspended during enrollment. Upon graduation, guaranteed placement at one of 12 partnered hospitals. Amara's hands trembled as she touched the papers. The numbers swam in front of her eyes. Why? She whispered. Because I need people who remember what power feels like from the bottom, Kang said. Not saints, not heroes, survivors. He leaned back, studying her. When Hardwick grabbed your hair, you had 3 choices. Fight back and lose your job. Stay silent and lose your dignity. Or resist in the smallest way possible. A whisper, a boundary. Knowing it might cost you everything anyway. Amara's vision blurred. You chose the third option, Kang continued. That takes something most people don't have. Not courage. Courage is loud. What you showed was endurance with limits. You know when to bend and when to hold the line. I'm just a cleaner, Amara said, her voice breaking. Kang's expression didn't change. No, you were just treated like one. Silence filled the room. Amara looked at the scholarship papers, at the numbers that could erase years of suffering, at the opportunity that men like Kang didn't offer to women like her. What do you want in return? She asked quietly. Honesty, Kang said. I want you to finish the program. I want you to take a leadership position, and when you do, I want you to remember what it felt like to be invisible. That's all? That's everything. He stood, buttoning his suit jacket. People who forget where they came from build systems like this one. People who remember build something better. Amara's mind raced. This was too much, too fast. Men like Kang Min-jae didn't just help, not without strings. I've heard things about you, she said carefully. About your businesses, your connections. I'm sure you have. Are they true? Kang smiled, a real smile this time, edged with something darker. Does it matter? You're drowning in debt at a hospital that lets its staff abuse you. I'm offering you a way out. Whether I'm a saint or a sinner doesn't change the water rising over your head. He walked to the door, then paused. You have 48 hours to decide, he said. After that, I move on to other investments. And if I say no? Then you say no. I don't own you, Ms. Okoye. I'm simply offering you the choice to own yourself. The door closed behind him. Amara sat alone in the beige office, staring at the folder. Her hands were still shaking. But somewhere beneath the fear and exhaustion and disbelief, something else stirred. Something that felt dangerously like hope. The memo arrived at 6:47 a.m., 3 days after Hardwick's suspension. It was printed on hospital letterhead, delivered to every department head, and CC'd to all staff with access to the internal portal. The language was clinical, bureaucratic, safe. RE. Internal Review Process, Staff Conduct Standards. Effective immediately, all staff incidents involving disciplinary matters will be subject to enhanced documentation protocols. Employees who file complaints or participate in investigations may be required to provide detailed testimony, undergo performance reviews, and submit to workplace conduct evaluations. This policy ensures transparency and protects the integrity of St. Helena Medical Center. Nurse Carla read it twice before understanding what it actually said. If you speak up, we will destroy you. She forwarded it to Amara with a single line. They're circling the wagons. The board meeting happened behind closed doors on the 7th floor. Administrator Chen sat at the far end of the polished mahogany table, flanked by 8 board members whose combined net worth could fund a small nation. They were doctors who'd stopped practicing, investors who'd never healed anyone, and legacy appointees whose grandparents had donated wings before donations came with tax incentives. At the head of the table sat Marcus Aldrich, Chief Financial Officer, 63, Princeton legacy, and the man who'd kept St. Helena profitable through 3 recessions by cutting unnecessary expenditures, like mental health services and staff raises. Aldrich didn't waste time with pleasantries. We have a problem, he said, tapping a thin folder in front of him. A very expensive problem named Kang Min-jae. Murmurs around the table. Hardwick's suspension was handled, Chen offered weakly. She's been placed on administrative leave pending. Pending nothing, Aldrich interrupted. She's finished. Kang made that abundantly clear. What concerns me is precedent. Dr. Helena Frost, board member, former chief of surgery, a woman who still wore her white coat to meetings like armor, leaned forward. Precedent? If we allow a single incident to justify removing a 23-year employee, what message does that send? Aldrich's voice was measured, reasonable. That anyone with deep enough pockets can waltz in and dictate hospital policy? He didn't dictate, Chen said carefully. He suggested. With the threat of financial ruin, Frost added. I read the transcript. He threatened to freeze our expansion loan, reopen settled malpractice cases, and expose buried board investigations. That's not a suggestion. That's extortion. Aldrich nodded. Exactly. And if we capitulate now, we set a precedent that external investors can weaponize against us anytime they disagree with internal operations. So what do you propose? Another board member asked. Aldrich opened the folder. Inside were photographs. Surveillance stills from hospital security cameras, time-stamped. dated. All of them featured Amara Okoye. "We will investigate the complainant," Aldridge said smoothly. "Standard protocol, background checks, employment history verification, performance reviews. If Ms. Okoye has any vulnerabilities, attendance issues, workplace infractions, interpersonal conflicts, we document them." Chen shifted uncomfortably. "That feels like retaliation." "It's due diligence," Frost corrected. "The woman filed a serious allegation against a senior staff member. We have an obligation to ensure her complaint is credible and not part of a larger agenda." "What agenda?" Chen asked. Aldridge's smile was thin. "That's what we're going to find out." By noon, the interviews had started. Dr. Shaw was called to HR first. He sat across from two administrators he'd never met, a man and woman in identical gray suits with identical neutral expressions. "We're conducting routine follow-up regarding the incident involving Chief Matron Hardwick," the woman said, clicking her pen. "You were present in the corridor during the altercation. Is that correct?" "Yes." "Can you describe what you witnessed?" Shaw hesitated. The memo had been clear. Enhanced documentation, performance reviews, conduct evaluations. "I saw Chief Matron Hardwick correcting a cleaner," he said carefully. "Things escalated. A visitor intervened." "How did it escalate?" "There was physical contact." "Define physical contact." Shaw's palms were sweating. Hardwick grabbed the cleaner's hair. "Did the cleaner provoke this response?" "No." "You're certain?" "Yes." The man leaned forward. "Dr. Shaw, we've reviewed your employment file. You've received 3 warnings in the past year for tardiness and 1 formal complaint regarding patient communication. Your performance has been inconsistent." Shaw's stomach dropped. "What does that have to do with—" "We're simply establishing context," the woman said smoothly. "Sometimes stress affects perception. We want to ensure your testimony is reliable." The message was clear. Change your story, or we'll change your employment status. Shaw looked at his hands. "I told you what I saw." "Did you?" Amara was mopping the 4th floor oncology wing when she felt someone watching her. She turned. A man in a tailored navy suit stood near the elevator bank. Mid-40s, thinning hair, expensive watch. He held a tablet and was typing something while occasionally glancing in her direction. Not looking. Documenting. Amara's grip tightened on the mop handle. The man noticed her noticing him. He smiled, polite, professional, empty, and approached. "Ms. Okoye?" She nodded. "Gerald Winters, Hospital HR Compliance." He extended a hand she didn't shake. "I was hoping to ask you a few questions about your employment history." "I already gave a statement. This is separate. Routine verification." He consulted his tablet. "You've been employed here for 8 months. Prior to that, you worked as a caregiver. Private contractor, correct?" "Yes." "Can you provide references from those positions?" Amara's chest tightened. The family she'd worked for, the son who'd supervised too closely, she'd left without notice after he'd cornered her in the laundry room. No reference, no recommendation, just escape. "I can try," she said quietly. Winters smiled. "Excellent. We'll also need verification of your nursing credits." "You mentioned pursuing a degree?" "I withdrew 3 years ago." "Reason for withdrawal?" "Personal circumstances." "Can you be more specific?" "My mother was dying." Winters typed something. "And her medical care was provided here at St. Helena?" Amara's blood went cold. Yes. Interesting. He looked up, his expression unchanged. We'll need to review those records as well. Patient satisfaction surveys, billing disputes, any complaints filed during her treatment. Why? Due diligence, Miss Okoye. When serious allegations are made, we have an obligation to ensure the complainant has no conflicts of interest. They're looking for reasons to discredit me, Amara realized. They're building a case. Is there anything else? She asked, her voice barely steady. Not at the moment. Winters pocketed his tablet. Though I should mention, we've received reports of you accepting food from staff members during work hours. That's technically a violation of break policy. Just something to be aware of going forward. He walked away. Amara stood frozen in the empty corridor, mop in hand, the weight of institutional power pressing down like concrete. That evening, her phone buzzed. Unknown number, single message. They will try to break you before they break themselves. Do not speak to them without representation. Kay Amara stared at the screen. Kang Minjae was still watching. The question was whether that protection would hold, or whether the system would grind her to dust before he could intervene again. The break room at 2 a.m. was a different world. Night shift nurses congregated there like survivors around a fire, exhausted, caffeinated, trading war stories in hushed voices that administration would never hear. Amara had cleaned this room 100 times, but never stayed, never sat, never belonged. Tonight, Nurse Carla pulled out a chair and gestured firmly. Sit. Amara hesitated. I should finish the... Sit, Carla repeated. You're not mopping. Not tonight. 4 other nurses sat around the table. Amara recognized them. Veterans who'd worked at St. Helena long enough to have ghosts behind their eyes. They looked at her with something between pity and determination. Dr. Patel was there too, still in her white coat, a USB drive sitting on the table in front of her like evidence at trial. We need to talk, Carla said. Dr. Patel spoke first. I've been documenting Hardwick for 3 years, she said quietly, tapping the USB drive. Every incident I witnessed, every complaint I heard, times, dates, witnesses, I kept it all. Amara stared. Why? Because I knew someone would need it eventually. Patel's jaw tightened. I filed 2 formal complaints with HR. Both disappeared. No follow-up, no investigation. Just gone. So I started keeping my own records. She pushed the USB drive toward Amara. There are 47 documented incidents here. Physical assault, verbal abuse, discriminatory discipline, and that's just what I personally witnessed. If we include what other staff reported to me, over 100. Another nurse, Maria, an older Filipino woman with 20 years at St. Helena, finished quietly. I kept a notebook. Hardwick told me my English was unprofessional. She reassigned me to graveyard shifts for 2 years because she said patients complained about my accent. Did they? Amara asked. I never saw a single complaint. Just her word. Another nurse leaned forward, James, one of the few male nurses on staff. She reported me to the board for inappropriate conduct with a female patient, completely fabricated. It took 6 months to clear my name. I almost lost my license. What did you do? Amara whispered. I told her the staffing ratios she was demanding were unsafe, that's all. I questioned her. James's hands curled into fists. She destroyed my reputation because I spoke up. Carla slid a folder across the table. Inside were photocopies, HR complaints, incident reports, internal memos. All stamped with red ink. Case closed. No further action. I've been stealing these from HR for 18 months, Carla said matter-of-factly. Every time someone filed against Hardwick, I made copies before they disappeared. Amara's hands shook as she flipped through the pages. Names she recognized: janitors, orderlies, nurses, even a junior doctor, all complaining about the same woman, all dismissed. This is... Amara couldn't find words. Systemic, Dr. Patel finished. It's not just Hardwick. It's everyone who protected her. HR, administration, the board. They knew. They always knew. Maria pulled out her own documentation, a worn spiral notebook filled with handwritten entries. She opened to a page marked with yellow highlighter. Look at the pattern, she said, pointing to names. Hardwick's targets were almost exclusively people of color, immigrants, or staff with accents. When she disciplined white nurses, it was verbal warnings. When she disciplined us, it was suspensions, terminations, formal complaints. Amara scanned the list. Her stomach turned. Filipina nurse, suspended for insubordination. Nigerian orderly, fired for attendance issues. Indian doctor, formal complaint for cultural insensitivity. Mexican janitor, terminated for theft that was never proven. She was protected because she maintained order, Carla said bitterly. And order meant keeping certain people in their place. The door opened. Everyone was tense, but it was just another night nurse, Sarah, young, white, relatively new. She looked terrified. I got your message, Sarah said to Carla. I don't know if I should... Close the door, Carla said gently. Sarah obeyed, then sat down at the edge of the group. Her hands twisted in her lap. I saw what Hardwick did to you, she said to Amara, not meeting her eyes. In the corridor. I was there. I know. I didn't say anything. Sarah's voice cracked. I should have said something, but I just stood there. You were scared, Amara said quietly. That's not an excuse. Sarah finally looked up, tears in her eyes. I've seen her do things to other staff. Terrible things. And I never said anything because I thought if I kept my head down, if I just did my job, she'd leave me alone. Did she? Dr. Patel asked, not unkindly. Sarah shook her head. Last month, she screamed at me in front of a patient's family because I asked about proper PPE protocols. She told me I was too soft for this profession. But she didn't grab me. She didn't threaten my job. Because I'm... white, Maria finished gently. You can say it. Sarah nodded miserably. I benefited from her racism, and I hate that I didn't see it clearly until now. Carla reached across and squeezed her hand. You're seeing it now. That's what matters. Dr. Patel turned back to Amara. HR called me this morning, she said. They asked about my perception of the incident. Suggested maybe I was stressed, overworked, seeing things that weren't there. They did the same to me, James added. Implied my testimony was unreliable because of my history with Hardwick. They're trying to discredit everyone who saw what happened, Carla said. Classic institutional playbook. Isolate the victim, intimidate the witnesses, bury the evidence. But they didn't count on us keeping our own records, Dr. Patel said, tapping the USB drive again. Or on Kang Min-jae having his own investigators. Amara's head snapped up. What? You didn't know? Carla smiled grimly. Kang's people have been interviewing current and former staff for 2 weeks. Quietly, off hospital grounds. They're building a case. Against Hardwick? Against everyone, Dr. Patel said. Hardwick, HR, the board members who buried complaints. They're documenting everything. Maria leaned forward. They want to interview you, Amara, officially, on record. Amara's breath caught. I can't. If I testify against the hospital, they'll destroy me. The debt, the job, everything. They're already trying to destroy you. Carla interrupted. Winters from HR? He's building a file to discredit you. They're going to claim you're a disgruntled employee with a grudge. Then maybe I should... No. Dr. Patel's voice was firm. You should fight. We all should. Together. Silence filled the break room. Amara looked at the faces around the table. These people had been invisible too. Dismissed. Intimidated. Broken down piece by a system that valued order over dignity. But they were still here. Still fighting. If I testify, Amara said slowly, and they retaliate, I lose everything. If you don't testify, Maria said gently, nothing changes. Hardwick gets replaced by another Hardwick, and the next cleaner, the next nurse, the next person who looks like us, they suffer the same way. Sarah spoke up, her voice stronger now. I'll testify too, about what I saw, what I didn't say. Me too, James said. One by one, they nodded. Amara's phone buzzed, another message from the unknown number. The truth is a weapon, but only if you're willing to wield it. Meeting tomorrow, 6 p.m., address attached. Your choice. Amara stared at the screen. Her hands were steady now. Tell Kang's people I'll be there, she said quietly. Dr. Patel smiled. Already done. The St. Helena Medical Center Board convened at 10 a.m. on a Thursday. It was supposed to be routine, quarterly review, budget approvals, public relations updates. The kind of meeting where administrators smiled for the local press, announced modest improvements, and congratulated themselves on maintaining standards of excellence. 40 reporters showed up instead of the usual 6. Administrator Chen noticed immediately. So did Marcus Aldridge, whose confident stride into the conference room faltered when he saw cameras from every major network. National outlets he hadn't invited, and journalists who'd covered political corruption trials. What the hell is this? Aldridge muttered to Chen. Chen's face was pale. I don't know. PR said it was standard coverage for the expansion announcement. Ms. Whitmore, the PR director, rushed over. Someone leaked the meeting agenda and sent a press packet to every newsroom in the city. What press packet? Whitmore's hands shook as she pulled up her tablet. Documentation of systemic abuse allegations, staff testimonies, HR complaint records, financial irregularities. It's comprehensive. Aldridge snatched the tablet. His face went from confusion to rage to something approaching panic in under 10 seconds. Who sent this? It's anonymous, but the sourcing is legitimate. Someone had access to sealed HR files, internal financial records, board meeting minutes from the past 5 years. Lock down the meeting, Aldridge snapped. No press. This is now a closed executive session. But it was too late. The doors at the back of the conference room opened, and Kang Min-jae walked in. He wasn't alone. Behind him came a woman in a sharp pantsuit carrying an accordion folder thick with documents, a man with a briefcase and the bearing of expensive legal counsel. And flanking them, Amara Okoye, Dr. Patel, Nurse Carla, Maria, James, and 6 other St. Helena staff members. All of them walked toward the front of the room like they had every right to be there. Because they did. Kang stopped at the center of the conference table, directly across from Aldridge. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Good morning, Kang said calmly. I apologize for the unexpected attendance. But given the public interest in this institution's governance, I thought transparency was appropriate. Aldridge shot to his feet. This is a private board meeting. You have no authority. I'm a major donor, Kang interrupted smoothly. Which, according to your own bylaws, grants me observer status at quarterly reviews. I'm simply exercising that right. With an entourage? Dr. Frost said sharply, gesturing at the staff members. With witnesses, Kang corrected, to what I'm about to present. The lawyer stepped forward, distributing folders to each board member. Reporters leaned in, cameras rolling. What you're holding, Kang continued, is documentation of systemic abuse, discriminatory discipline, and institutional retaliation at St. Helena Medical Center spanning 7 years. 147 verified incidents, 63 formal complaints buried by HR, and a pattern of racialized targeting that violates federal employment law. Silence. Aldridge opened his folder. His jaw tightened. This is inflammatory, he said. Unverified allegations from disgruntled, verified by 6 current employees, 12 former employees, and corroborated by hospital security footage, email records, and HR's own documentation. Kang's voice remained even. Every incident is time-stamped. Every complaint cross-referenced. Every witness prepared to testify under oath. Chen looked like he might be sick. Dr. Patel stepped forward. Her voice was steady, clear. I filed 2 formal complaints against Chief Matron Evelyn Hardwick. Both were dismissed without investigation. When I asked HR for status updates, I was told the complaints were unsubstantiated. She pulled out her USB drive, holding it up. I documented every incident I witnessed. 47 separate occasions where Hardwick physically assaulted, verbally degraded, or discriminatorily disciplined staff members, predominantly people of color and immigrants. Maria spoke next. I was reassigned to night shifts for 2 years as punishment for having an accent Hardwick deemed unprofessional. No patient complaints, no performance issues, just discrimination. James. I was nearly stripped of my nursing license because I questioned unsafe staffing ratios. Hardwick filed a false complaint of sexual misconduct. It took 6 months and $15,000 in legal fees to clear my name. One by one, they testified. Not to the board, to the cameras, to the city watching. Aldridge tried to regain control. These allegations are serious, and they deserve proper investigation through appropriate channels. You had 7 years to investigate through appropriate channels, Kang said coldly. You chose to bury them instead. That's a baseless accusation. Page 43, Kang said, nodding to the lawyer. Board members flipped through their folders. Chen's hands trembled. It was an internal memo from Aldridge himself, dated 18 months prior. HR complaint volume. Recommend implementing enhanced documentation requirements to discourage frivolous staff complaints. Current volume creates liability exposure and administrative burden. Suggest requiring notarized statements, multiple witnesses, and supervisor pre-approval before complaints are formally processed. You didn't ignore complaints, Kang said. You systematically erected barriers to prevent them from being filed at all. Dr. Frost's face had gone pale. Marcus, is this real? Aldridge said nothing. A reporter shouted from the back. Mr. Aldridge, did you knowingly suppress evidence of workplace abuse? Another. How many staff members were terminated after filing complaints? The room erupted. Kang raised a hand. The chaos quieted, not because he demanded it, but because everyone wanted to hear what came next. This institution has a choice, Kang said, addressing the board directly. You can fight this publicly. Hire lawyers, discredit witnesses, drag these people through depositions and trials while the press documents every detail. Or, he paused, you can accept reform, immediate external audit of HR practices, third-party oversight of disciplinary procedures, mandatory bias training for all administrators, and the resignation of every board member who received and ignored complaints. Aldridge laughed, sharp, bitter. You're insane if you think... I've frozen your expansion loan, Kang said quietly. Effective 1 hour ago, your malpractice insurance carrier is reviewing 7 previously settled cases based on new evidence of administrative misconduct, and the Department of Health has been notified of potential Medicare fraud related to staffing hour misreporting. Aldridge's face was drained of color. You don't have leverage, Kang continued. You have a choice, reform or ruin. The room fell silent. Board members looked at each other, at the cameras, at the staff members standing with Kang. Dr. Frost spoke first, her voice quiet. I move for the immediate suspension of CFO Marcus Aldridge pending external investigation. Seconded, another board member said quickly. Aldridge slammed his folder shut. This is a coup. This is accountability, Kang corrected. Something you should have provided years ago. Amara watched from the side of the room. Her heart pounded. Her hands were steady. For the first time in 8 months, maybe longer, she felt visible. Not as a cleaner. As a person who mattered. Kang caught her eye across the room. He didn't smile, but he nodded. And somehow, that was enough. The city buzzed for 3 weeks. Local news ran the story nightly. National outlets picked it up as a case study in workplace abuse and institutional corruption. Think pieces proliferated about power, race, and healthcare systems that protected administrators over staff. St. Helena Medical Center became shorthand for everything wrong with American hospitals. And Amara Okoye became a face she didn't recognize. The first interview request came on day 4. A producer from a morning talk show wanted her to share her story. Inspirational, they called it. Empowering. They offered travel expenses, hair and makeup, a segment titled From Invisible to Unstoppable. Amara deleted the email. The second came from a podcast about systemic racism. The third from a documentary filmmaker. The fourth from a book agent who saw tremendous commercial potential in her narrative. She deleted them all. You could help people, Carla said gently, watching Amara scrub the same section of floor for the 3rd time. Your story matters. My story is that I got my hair pulled, and a rich man intervened, Amara said flatly. That's not inspiration, that's luck. It's more than that. Is it? Amara sat back on her heels. I didn't fight the system. I didn't organize the staff. I didn't expose Hardwick. I just survived. Kang did everything else. Carla crouched beside her. You testified. That took courage. It took desperation, Amara corrected. I had nothing left to lose. The hospital had changed. Aldridge resigned to pursue other opportunities. 3 board members followed. An external firm conducted a comprehensive HR audit, finding systemic failures in complaint processing, discriminatory discipline patterns, and financial irregularities in staffing budget allocations. Hardwick was gone, not just suspended, but barred from healthcare administration in the state. The licensing board cited a pattern of abuse spanning 2 decades, multiple institutions, hundreds of victims who'd been too afraid to speak. She never apologized. In her only public statement, released through her lawyer, she claimed she was a dedicated professional who'd been scapegoated by political forces seeking to undermine institutional authority. Amara read the statement once. Then she threw her phone across the room. The reforms came in waves. Anonymous complaint hotlines, mandatory bias training, third-party oversight of disciplinary decisions, staff councils with actual power to review administrative actions. On paper, it looked like progress. In practice, the walls still had memories. Amara walked the same corridors she'd mopped for 8 months, but now people recognized her. The doctors nodded. The nurses smiled. Administrators went out of their way to ask if she needed anything. It felt worse than invisibility. "They're being nice because they're afraid," she told Dr. Patel one evening in the break room. "Not because they see me as human, because they're terrified I'll report them next." Dr. Patel considered this. "Does the reason matter if the outcome is better treatment?" "Yes," Amara said quietly. "Because fear isn't respect. It's just deferred cruelty." Kang Min-jae requested a meeting 6 weeks after the board hearing. Same office, same window overlooking the city. But this time, Amara arrived as something other than a cleaner being rescued. She wasn't sure what that something was yet. Kang sat across from her, hands folded, expression unreadable as always. "How are you?" he asked. "Confused," Amara said honestly. "About?" "Everything." She gestured vaguely. "The hospital changed, people changed, but I'm still cleaning floors, still in debt, still stuck." "You declined the scholarship." "I deferred it," Amara corrected. "There's a difference." "Why?" She'd been asking herself that question for weeks. The scholarship sat in her apartment like an accusation. Full tuition, housing stipend, guaranteed placement. Everything she'd worked toward before her mother got sick. "Because I'm afraid," she finally said, "of becoming someone I don't recognize. Of using what happened to me as currency, of—" She stopped. Kang waited. "Of becoming like them?" Amara finished quietly. "The administrators, the people who forgot where they came from." Kang stood, walking to the window. "Do you know what I was afraid of when I started this work?" he asked. Amara shook her head. "That removing bad people would be enough. That if I just cut out the rot, the Hardwicks, the Aldridges, the system would heal itself." He turned to face her. "But systems don't heal. They adapt. They find new ways to protect themselves." "Then what's the point?" "The point," Kang said, "is that someone has to be in the room when those adaptations happen. Someone who remembers what it felt like to be powerless. Not to prevent all harm, that's impossible, but to slow it down. To make cruelty more difficult than dignity." He returned to his seat. "You're afraid of becoming like them because you think proximity to power corrupts automatically. But power doesn't corrupt. Distance does. When you forget what suffering looks like up close, that's when you become dangerous." Amara's throat tightened. "I'm a cleaner," she whispered. "I don't know how to lead." "You led when you whispered, 'Don't touch me,'" Kang said. "You led when you testified in front of cameras." "Leadership isn't volume, Ms. Okoye. It's deciding what lines you won't let anyone cross, even when crossing would be easier." He slid a new folder across the desk, different from the first one, thinner. "The scholarship is yours whenever you're ready," Kang said. "But I'm also offering something else." Amara opened the folder. Inside, a job description. Patient Advocate Coordinator, St. Helena Medical Center, salary that would cover her debt payments with room to breathe, responsibilities including complaint oversight, staff support, and direct reporting to the new board. You want me to stay here? Amara asked, disbelieving. I want you to have options, Kang corrected. You can take the scholarship and leave. Start fresh somewhere that doesn't have these memories. Or you can stay and ensure the reforms we fought for actually mean something. Why me? Because you understand what it costs to speak up, Kang said. And you'll remember that cost when the next person needs someone to believe them. Amara stared at the job description. Patient Advocate Coordinator. A title. An office. Authority to challenge the same administrators who'd ignored her for months. It terrified her. But somewhere beneath the fear, something else stirred. Not hope. Hope felt too fragile, but maybe the chance to be visible, not because someone powerful intervened, but because she chose to stand in the light herself. I need time to think, Amara said. Kang nodded. Take what you need. She stood to leave, then paused at the door. Why did you really help me? She asked. The truth. Kang's expression softened. Barely, but enough. Because someone helped me once, he said. When I had nothing and no one believed I'd become anything. They didn't save me. They just saw me. That's all anyone really needs, to be seen. Amara walked out of the office. The folder felt heavy in her hands. But for the first time in years, the weight felt like a possibility instead of a burden. She didn't know what she'd choose yet. But she knew one thing for certain. She would never be invisible again. 6 months later, Amara Okoye walked through the corridors of St. Helena Medical Center differently. Not louder, not arrogantly, but visibly. Her ID badge no longer read Environmental Services. The new one, clipped to a navy blazer she'd bought secondhand but tailored to fit, said, Patient Advocate Coordinator, in a clean sans serif font. She'd taken the job. Deferred the scholarship for a year, but took the job. Some days, she still wasn't sure why. Most days, she remembered, the 4th floor oncology wing still smelled the same. Disinfectant and artificial lavender, the particular staleness of recycled air and long-term suffering. Amara had mopped these floors 100 times in another life. 3 shifts ago, 6 months ago, a lifetime ago. Now she walked them with a clipboard and purpose. Ms. Okoye, a nurse, young, tired, name tag reading Jennifer, nodded as Amara passed. Not the avoidance nod of someone sidestepping an obstacle. A real acknowledgement, person to person. Amara nodded back. Small things. Shouldn't matter. It did. She found what she was looking for near the nurse's station. A housekeeper, older black woman, maybe 60, shoulders curved like parentheses, stood frozen while a doctor berated her. Not yelling, worse. That cold, clipped tone that turned correction into humiliation. Completely unacceptable. I asked for this room to be cleaned an hour ago. Do you understand that we have standards here? That patients deserve... Amara stopped walking. The housekeeper's eyes were lowered. Her hands gripped the mop handle so tightly her knuckles had gone pale. Amara recognized that grip. She'd held a mop the same way once. Dr. Chen. Amara's voice cut through the corridor, not loud, but firm, the kind of voice that expected to be heard. The doctor turned, young, probably a resident, the kind who'd learned bedside manner from people like Hardwick and thought cruelty was professionalism. I'm in the middle of... I can see what you're in the middle of, Amara said calmly, closing the distance between them. And it stops now. Dr. Chen's face flushed. Excuse me? Amara turned to the housekeeper. What's your name? The woman hesitated, like it might be a trap. Gloria. Gloria, can you tell me what happened? Gloria's voice was barely audible. I was cleaning room 412. The patient needed something, so I stepped out to find a nurse. When I came back, the doctor was waiting and said She abandoned her duties. Dr. Chen interrupted. Left cleaning supplies blocking the doorway while she wandered off. She assisted a patient, Amara corrected, her tone still even. Which is exactly what hospital protocol requires. Patient care supersedes non-emergency maintenance tasks. She pulled out her tablet, made a note. I'll be filing a report about this interaction, Amara continued, including your name, the time, and the nature of your complaint. Gloria will have an opportunity to provide her account. If there's a legitimate concern about cleaning protocols, we'll address it through proper channels. Dr. Chen's expression shifted from indignation to uncertainty. You were just speaking to a human being, like she was disposable, Amara said quietly. And in this hospital, under current policy, that's no longer acceptable. Silence. Other staff members had stopped to watch. Nurses, orderlies, another doctor who suddenly became very interested in a chart. The audience wasn't hostile, just witnessing. Dr. Chen looked around for support that didn't come. I apologize, he said finally, the words stiff. I was frustrated about the delay. I shouldn't have. Apologize to Gloria, Amara said. Not to me. Dr. Chen turned to the housekeeper. I apologize for my tone. Gloria nodded silently. Amara made another note on her tablet. Thank you, Dr. Chen. You can go. He left quickly, shoulders tight with embarrassment. Amara turned to Gloria. Are you okay? Gloria's eyes were wet. I just wanted to help the patient. She was calling for water and You did exactly what you should have done, Amara said gently. And you don't have to apologize for it. Will there be trouble? For him, a note in his file. Mandatory training on workplace conduct. For you? Amara met her eyes. Nothing. You did your job. That's all. Gloria's grip on the mop finally loosened. Thank you. Amara wanted to say something profound, something about dignity, or justice, or solidarity. But the words felt too big for the moment. So she just said, You're not invisible, Gloria. None of us are. She continued her rounds. 2 more floors, 3 patient check-ins, 1 complaint about discharge instructions that weren't translated properly. She flagged it for the language services coordinator. 1 family who couldn't get straight answers about billing. She connected them with financial advocacy. Small things, the kind of things that didn't make headlines or change systems overnight. But they mattered. To the people involved, they mattered. At 4 p.m., Amara stopped by the break room on the 2nd floor. Carla was there, along with Dr. Patel and Maria. They'd formed something unofficial, a support network, a watchdog committee, a group of people who refused to forget what silence cost. How was today? Carla asked. Stopped a resident from verbally assaulting a housekeeper, Amara said, pouring coffee that had been sitting too long. Filed 2 patient advocacy reports. I attended a policy review meeting where administrators actually listened. Progress, Dr. Patel said. Slow progress, Amara corrected. But progress. Maria smiled. That's all we can ask for. Through the break room window, Amara saw him. 6 stories below, in the parking lot, standing beside a black sedan. Kang Min-jae. Same charcoal suit, same unreadable expression. hands folded behind his back. He wasn't looking up. I wasn't watching. Just present. A reminder that some protections were permanent. Amara didn't wave, didn't acknowledge him. She just turned back to her colleagues and continued the conversation. Because that's what the work was now. Not dramatic interventions or board meetings. Just showing up, speaking up, refusing to let people become invisible again. That evening, as Amara walked to her car, she passed the entrance where it had all started. The same corridor, the same nurse's station, the same fluorescent lights that never quite illuminated the corners. A new cleaner worked there now. Young woman, headphones in, mopping with the same careful invisibility Amara remembered. Amara slowed. "Excuse me," she said gently. The woman looked up, startled, pulled out one earbud. "Yes?" "You're doing good work," Amara said. "Thank you." The woman blinked in confusion, like gratitude was a language she'd forgotten existed. "Oh, you're welcome?" Amara smiled. "If you ever need anything, if anyone gives you trouble, my office is on the 3rd floor. Patient advocacy. Doors always open." She handed the woman her card. The cleaner stared at it like it was foreign currency. "Okay," she whispered. "Thank you." Amara walked out into the evening air. The city sprawled before her, lights flickering on as dusk settled, traffic humming its eternal rhythm, lives intersecting and diverging in patterns too complex to predict. She thought about her mother, about the woman who'd taught her to meet important people's eyes, to take up space even when the world insisted she shouldn't. She thought about Kang, about the man who'd seen her when everyone else looked through her. She thought about Gloria and Jennifer and the young cleaner whose name she didn't know yet. All of them visible now, not because someone powerful had declared it, but because they'd decided, individually, collectively, stubbornly, that invisibility was no longer acceptable. Power doesn't always arrive shouting. Sometimes it watches quietly until someone crosses a line, and sometimes it lives in the small act of refusing to be erased, in meeting someone's eyes, in saying, "I see you," in walking through the world like you have every right to be seen. Amara Okoye drove home that night, hands steady on the wheel. She was still in debt, still healing, still learning what it meant to have power without forgetting what powerlessness felt like. But she walked differently now. Not louder, not arrogantly, just visibly, and in a world that had spent years teaching her to disappear, that was everything. Power doesn't always arrive shouting. Sometimes it watches quietly until someone crosses a line. And sometimes the greatest act of resistance is simply refusing to be invisible. Thanks so much, my dear friends, for enjoying this beautiful story till this end. If you've not subscribed, kindly subscribe now to be notified when we drop our next story. Also, like the video and comment where you are watching from and what time it's at your end. Thank you.